We're going to talk about Brock Purdy's time at Iowa State. We'll go through. We got a list of little questions here. But first off, there's so much hate going around this name. Jake, what's going on with this? Why do you think that he gets the hate that he does?
It's just kind of been the MO of his career. It's just transitioned from an Iowa fan to now just jabronis who love to watch First Take in the morning. So kind of the hate has switched. It's just like, I don't know. It's funny how America works. It's like they want to root for the underdog until the underdog is king. And once people like stopped rooting for the feel good story, now that everybody just wants to doubt him and he can't keep doing it. And I don't want to be that guy, but he just continues to prove everybody wrong.
I agree. And not to mention, there's a lot of people on his side this week just for the Taylor Swift factor. So I think they may have been hating on him all year, but he's got a lot of fans back. JP, why do you think Brock Purdy gets the hate that he does as a person who probably hates him a lot or hated him maybe?
Back I think he maybe loved hate because he has the non-rewarding, I can't think of the way to say it, but he's on a team that's really talented around him, right? Comparisons came from Dan Patrick this morning is actually talking about this, right? When you look at Terry Bradshaw when he was with the Pittsburgh Steelers, like those teams were that good. Like, how can you not win a Super Bowl with those teams? It was kind of what was looked at him. And then Troy Aikman with those Cowboy teams, the same thing. It was a lot of like, how do you not win? Like, how you have to win. It's not because of you're winning.
Wouldn't they argue like Tom Brady? Wouldn't he be this early in his career? Wasn't he the same argument? Like
probably,
when he replaced,
but he won 7.
I know, but early in his career, when he replaced Bledsoe, and everybody said it was Belichick's defense, and he didn't score a ton of points that first. Like that offense wasn't very good his first Super Bowl he won. That's just like
but he didn't have the amount of talent around him that Bradshaw and Aikman did. Like, and then Purdy does right now. Like the amount of talent around him is ridiculous. But he does. I mean, he gets a lot of hate because he's a 49er on a team that's talented, and I don't know. Like, it just seems like a lot of it is people don't want him to succeed because it's like he's not the big name, right? Like, it's just kind of one of those things. People pick and choose who they want to like depending on what's put in front of their eyes. In this opinion, it's Purdy's been shoved down your throat for about a year and a half now, especially live in the state of Iowa. Like, it's every week. The guy could throw 6 interceptions, 1 interception, and 100 yards and still be a front page news the next day. Like, so like people are going to have an opinion on it, right? And it's just different in the NFL than it was in college, because in college it wasn't a national story every week.
And I love that when people stick up for him hate-wise, when they say, he has all these weapons. He's surrounded by great players. He's in the NFL, jackass. What is he supposed to do? Do you want him to not throw to Deebo Samuel? Like, would that make you feel better about Brock Purdy?
I mean, he could be
he's good.
He could be in Chicago.
Yeah.
That's the NFL. Like, that's the same. It's the same argument. Like, you can't say he's in the NFL. What's he not supposed to do? But he could play in Chicago where Justin Fields is, and you tell me who to throw a football to there.
But he's not picking and choosing. That's a front office.
No, it's not him picking and choosing, but it is like, it's still the NFL, whether in Chicago or San Francisco. He just has all pros at 4 different positions. If not more than 4.
In that situation, Justin Fields,
like, anybody can
like quarterback. That's true.
I would argue, that's my problem with the argument is that they see Purdy as a plug and play guy. Like, he's replaceable with anybody. And I just don't think that's true. Like, there's a reason why when everybody says that they should cut him or he shouldn't be the starter next year, there's not a single guy. Shanahan's not saying it. McCaffrey's not saying it. The San Francisco 49ers fan base isn't saying it. There's a reason, because this guy gets it. Is he the most talented quarterback in the NFL? Absolutely not. But I think he adapts to Shanahan's system well. My team, for instance, if you put Garner Minshew in Brock Purdy's shoes this year, they're not in the Super Bowl. I could list off 10 other quarterbacks. I would probably argue you put Justin Fields in San Francisco. They're not in the Super Bowl. Like, there's at least there's probably 10 to 15 quarterbacks in the NFL right now that I think you could throw in San Francisco, and they drafted a guy in the first 5 picks. He couldn't cut it out. Jimmy G couldn't cut it out. Like, we've seen this before where other guys have been in Purdy's shoes and they couldn't get it done with the talent in San Francisco. So to say that anybody could do what he's doing is just, I don't think it's true.
I simply think it's not mainly, but a big chunk of it is because he comes from Iowa State and he's the last pick in the draft. Like if this was CJ Stroud, they're not questioning it. Like, oh, this guy, it wouldn't be, oh, he has so many weapons. It'd be, oh, he's elite. But because of where he came from, which is the topic of this, that is why the hate lies in my mind. But what was different, Jake? We'll go to you on this first, obviously, with the fan opinion.
I can tell you what was different.
What was different in his time at Iowa State from his game now? I think obviously what sticks out is the big time mistakes, the dumb interceptions, the fumbles that obviously you always saw on highlight tapes. But what was different in his time at ISU? And then give me your real fan feel and kind of your thoughts on Brock Purdy as a player in his time at Iowa State.
Yeah, when you ask me this, I'm assuming you're meaning like what was different. People are maybe wondering who didn't pay attention, like why didn't this team win a national championship or something ridiculous like that? Why weren't they in a playoff?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, to the naked eye, for any person with common sense, Iowa State doesn't recruit on a national level. Like they don't even recruit in the top 50 in college football on a normal basis. Like we're lucky to have a 55th ranked recruiting class in college football. Yes. Did they have Breece Hall, who's probably the best running back in the NFL right now? Yes. Did they have Hakeem Butler, Xavier Hutchinson? They had these guys where they developed. Breece Hall had like 2 scholarships out of high school. They didn't. This was all development, and it's easy to have like those guys at Iowa State, but Iowa State offensive line wise, when he was in school, was easily the bottom half of the Big 12 and easily the bottom half of Power 5 football. Like it's not even close. So the line of scrimmage is huge for him. And that just forced him to do a lot of things that he was probably not capable of doing. He had those stupid turnovers because he felt like he needed to do too much. And I was one of those guys where like that Clemson game, I mean, his last play as a Cyclone is the most
incredible. It's incredible stuff.
It's one of the best clips in college football history. That is remarkable.
It's the most accurate, like Brock Purdy thing of all time. Like he's going up against a team that is superior to our talent level in Clemson, and he tries to make the most of it, and he just about does, and he gets a huge clutch first down, and he fumbles it. Like that's just who he was. For one, I'll admit I was a guy who didn't took it for granted a little bit. The turnovers at times got they got annoying to me, and I'm just a guy who just didn't take that well. And obviously, like somebody said in a podcast, I think it was another Cyclone podcast I was listening to, when you're 18 years old and you step in and you're 7-2 as a starter in your first year and you take Iowa State to heights that they hadn't seen before, like everything else from sophomore year on was going to be giant expectations. And I think the expectations at times were just a little too high for what we could bear. And he had a horrible offensive coordinator. Sorry, Tom Manning. You're just awful.
Manning catching strays. All right, let's go to JP as an opposing fan opinion. Brock Purdy gets to play Iowa twice in his career. What did you take away from his time there? Do you think he was an elite quarterback in his time at Iowa State? JP. That face
elite
tells
by
me.
what?
I say
elite in what way? Elite Iowa State
can I ask,
quarterback.
in whatever way you can.
No. Let me ask. Elite. So
no.
We'd have to go back. You look at his draft class. Was he not a top 15 quarterback at least his senior year in college football?
Well, he was a top 255 pick.
Top
good point, Reese.
Yeah,
good pull there. Was he not? Okay, serious question. Was he not at least a top 15 quarterback in college? I would argue absolutely yes.
Doesn't make you elite in college.
Quarterbacks of the class.
Yeah, you'd have to show me the full list to go through that off the top of my head. But
there's also guys that didn't.
He's an elite quarterback at Iowa State level. Like he is second to Seneca Wallace, and there's not really an argument there. But he reached heights that Seneca did not. He was on better teams, maybe some teams that underachieved, maybe some teams that overachieved. It probably evens itself out a little bit. But I think just the longevity of him being there for 4 years and them still going 7-5, 8-4, I think pissed fans off. It was, we just want 7 wins in a bowl game, to why are we not playing for a Big 10 or Big 12 title in year 3 and 4, which is I'll admit, a little aggressive. It is, but that's the reality of the situation. What it became, like, it was like, how do we flip? How do we get to Deckers? How do we turn the page? This kid's a better passer than Purdy is. Maybe he won't make the dumb mistakes and lose us games. Well, you know what Deckers is never going to do? Win you big games. Not that he's playing football for him anymore. Yeah.
Got him.
True. Also true.
Again.
Got him.
Good call.
Nobody knew he wasn't going to play again. Fair enough. But then you go to like Rocco and people are like, dude, Rocco, here comes Rocco. What if Rocco is just Purdy 0.2?
See,
what if he's the same dude?
I personally,
it's playing a different Big 12.
He's doesn't take the risks as much as Brock does. But I enjoy watching Rocco a lot. He's really smart. Like, he doesn't make the Purdy decisions, but I don't think the coaching staff allows him to do that either. I don't think he has that trust that Purdy did.
But do you think he's going to be in 3 years be more beloved than
No,
Brock Purdy?
No. Will he go down better as a cycle and better than Brock Purdy? Absolutely not. Like, there's no Rocco Beck without Brock Purdy.
As soon as they could say Brock Purdy's out the door, they're like, damn, I love Brock Purdy. But a week prior, when they still had a game to kick off on Saturday, it was like, dude, this guy is just come on, man.
And I think the one thing we forget is, I think the Brock Purdy conversation at Iowa State, it's recency bias. I think that senior year just left a lot of people with a sour taste in their mouth. And the national media is to blame for it because, I mean, I love Josh Pate, but you have guys like him.
Shit, the national media. Oh my God.
What do you mean?
No way. They are not to blame for you underachieving the way you did.
No, I'm just saying that, like, the expectations were sky high because everybody thought that team was going to be a college football playoff team. Like, there were people who.
Well, they did win the Fiesta Bowl, Jake. I think that they were rightfully
No, I know.
sky high.
I agree.
My first bets ever.
Shout out.
I agree.
No. Your expectations in Ames from your own fan base were higher than the national media. So you had one guy pick you to go to the playoff in a bad Big 12 that year, and you're like, the national media. That the people on campus and in that city and in that fan base blew it up.
There were a lot of people. Absolutely.
No, I need you to say. I need you to say this with me, all right?
I'm confused.
No.
I just said it.
This is your fan base that made those expectations, not the national media.
Yeah, but you could argue that, like, if we were saying that we were going to be a college football playoff team and the national media didn't think so, why would we have been entered as a top 10 team that year? Like, we could have thought that, we return everybody from our Fiesta Bowl, but national media thought it's Iowa State. It was a fluky year. They're not in the top 10. They set us up for that. There were people that said it's Iowa State and it's Oklahoma.
So any ranking in the top 10, no, it was mostly everybody in Ames. Into that fan base. If you don't want to be in the top 10 in the preseason, like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, they were talking like a town for like a week.
You're acting like Iowa State was the Iowa State fans were the only people who thought that team could.
No, I'm saying after week two, they were.
Yeah, I didn't think so, but that was I didn't think that.
They were still expected to win out.
I mean, yeah, they could
win
still
the Big 12,
had a chance to win the Big 12
and have a chance at it.
Yeah, I think going off of that, I just think that going 7-6 after his senior year, it left a lot of people with a sour taste in their mouth. They thought they underachieved there, but the grand scheme of things, looking back, I mean, was 7 wins probably the style of football that they played. Yeah,
that
7
was not
wins
the ceiling for that team.
No, 7 wins wasn't the ceiling. You're saying?
Yeah, like that team could have won 10.
They could have,
probably should have.
They played such marginal football where they could have only won 6 games.
Let me introduce you to a team who plays a lot of marginal football and just won 10 games. All right.
Yeah, and we did the year before. We won 9 games the year before.
But you had an offense that wasn't ranked 132nd, right? So we can win football games in marginal football, Jake. It's possible. It's possible.
Except that defense Brock senior
you had
year,
a good
people forget
defense.
that they gave up 45 to Texas Tech and 42 to West Virginia, both on the road. So people forget that. People don't like to bring that up.
I also don't know if we've seen a Big 10 or Big 12 overall conference as bad as the Big 10 was this year overall. top to bottom.
Yeah, that's different. We're getting
That's
into
fine.
the
10
weeds
games,
of
10
that.
games.
Well, that was the comparison he just made to you, Jake, was that Iowa wins 10 games this year in the same
Playing marginal
situation that you
football.
kind of laid out. Yeah, marginal football, but in your defense, the Big Ten was so bad, much worse than what the Big 12
Big
was.
12.
that
Well,
year.
I get what you're saying.
I'm
My
not saying that's
outside
wrong.
fan perspective, and it's a little bit different because we're not rivals by any means, but Brock Purdy's career at Iowa State was elite at Iowa State, elite for Iowa State, good to great overall. I can hear both. I mean, if we're listing accolades tonight, like we did for the coaches,
I was going to say
first team All Big 12, 20 and 21, second team as a senior All American, Fiesta Bowl MVP in 2020, a ton of academic. He was a nerd. Davey O'Brien semifinalist, Manning Award semifinalist, 2018 Big 12 True Freshman of the Year. I mean, he has a great college career overall, but elite for his school. And as a fan, and this is a little bit different than what JP, like I just said, would say, but we used to play Iowa State. But now, as an outsider from a different conference, Daddy doesn't get mad when the son succeeds. It doesn't make me mad. I'm glad he had a good career.
I want to ask that, and I want to take like the bias away. Guys, if we put this guy in Brennan Armstrong's shoes at NC State, I'm sorry, JP, not to say you're not being biased here, but we're regarding Brennan Armstrong as an elite college quarterback. If we put Brock Purdy's stats in 4 years,
I never said
NC
Purdy
State,
had a bad career. I never said anything bad about his college career.
You asked if he was an elite college quarterback, and I'm arguing
Elite
he is.
overall. I don't think he's an elite. Like, if we're looking back for that year or overall, like if I look
overall,
at 15 years,
if you're talking
his 4 years in college,
class,
he threw for
gonna make
12,000 yards. He threw for 12,000 yards.
I got his stats right here, Jake. Don't worry. Like I see them. I read them.
Here's my gripe, my one gripe. I think because Reese said this the other day. He's like, well, I don't think many people paid attention to him in college. If at least on the casual side, like for the diehard college football fans, as we are, if there was a guy in Purdy's shoes that played 4 years, was usually a top 25 team, like if somebody goes, who's Iowa State's quarterback? You don't even have to second think it. Like you know what I mean? Like if this were happening again at another school similar to Iowa State, we would, in the blink of an eye, we're like, well, of course we know who that quarterback is. Like he's been around for 4 years and they're in the top 25. So was he well known? At least in the college football diehards? Absolutely. I don't think there's any question.
But would they consider him a leader? Or would they just say he's good?
They would say he's above average good in the grand scheme of college football, but he's elite when it comes to Iowa State's history. JP, you said that too.
Above average. He's better than above average. I'm not saying he's above average. I'm not saying he's below or like.
So you'd put him.
I'm not saying he's average,
good or above average, good, great, like kind of on that.
He's in between good and great.
Yeah,
whatever that is.
I don't know.
Whatever.
And the biggest change from his game is just taking it away than the mistakes. And obviously, I mean, he has more weapons than the NFL, but he has more weapons than most of the NFL does and where he's at. So all in all, I think this was more cordial. It got a little chippy there. JP got a little chippy, and that's to be expected. I did call him my son as well.
Point.
It's fair enough.
To put a bow on it, for like the last question we have, would you say underachieved or overachieved in his career?
He overachieved, but it feels like he underachieved because of what you said, Jake, in that bad taste.
Yeah. I would. Yeah, he won 7 games against top 25 opponents. I mean, for an Iowa State fan, you played Clemson, Notre Dame, and Oregon in a bowl game. That was unprecedented before him. You won 3 straight years against Texas. Let me tell you this. As a kid who went and saw Texas come to Ames in 2008, and they were up 50 at halftime, and we just went to Applebee's and just went home. If you'd have told that kid we'd beat Texas 3 straight years after that, it's a lot different from where you come from.
It can happen.
And then obviously you won a New Year's Six Bowl, also something you never would have thought of.
And Jake, not many quarterbacks, a decent majority of quarterbacks would not be able to say this, but he is one of the few to beat every Big 12 team.
Yep.
Yeah, he beat every single Big 12 team in the conference. So that's pretty cool.
Another thing, like for that year, and obviously the Matt Campbell era, like you go into every game at least thinking you have a chance. If not, you should win. That wasn't a thing 15 years ago. It's like, if we're even close to at halftime against Oklahoma, that's a win in itself.
Right. The program, the biggest difference, kind of like how I'm not going to get into that. My point, I'll tell you after. But all right,